Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something really critical for businesses, I think. How to actually achieve sustainable and inclusive growth.
hmm
And we're using McKinsey's 2024 report as our guide here. It had some, well, really compelling insights.
It does. It shows how companies are starting to weave these principles into, everything they do. Building a better future, sure, but also a stronger bottom line.
Exactly. And the whole conversation seems to have shifted, hasn't it? It's less why do this and more how.
That's right. The McKinsey report really underscores that. The forces pushing this change are, well, they're significant. But so are the potential upsides, the rewards for businesses that actually figure this out.
Okay, so that's what we want to unpack for you today. We'll look at the reasons behind it, pull out some actionable strategies from the report, and maybe look at some real-world examples too, right? See who's leading the way.
Sounds good.
So let's kick off with the basics. Why is sustainable and inclusive growth suddenly such a, well, a non-negotiable?
Well, the report points to a few powerful things coming together. First off, you just can't ignore the environmental pressures anymore. Climate change, resources getting scarcer, biodiversity loss. I mean, these aren't abstract ideas now.
No, they hit the bottom line. Supply chains get disrupted.
Exactly. Costs go up, customer preferences are changing too. So the expectation now is, okay, businesses need to actively reduce their carbon footprint. They need to look at renewable energy, adopt this idea of a circular economy.
Circular economy.
Yeah.
That's the keep things in use idea, right? Less waste.
Precisely. Moving away from just take, make, dispose. It's about designing waste out, keeping materials circulating for longer.
Right, and like you said, real financial implications there, not just being green. And then there's the whole social side of things. That's grown too, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely. Social expectations are, well, they're transformed. Consumers are looking much closer at the companies they buy from. Investors, too, they're factoring social impact into decisions. Regulators are watching things like fair wages, community support.
People want to feel good about where their money goes or where they work.
Yeah, they want to align with organizations that actually show they're committed to positive outcomes. Fair pay, diversity in the team, supporting local communities. It all adds up.
And governments are stepping in more formally now too, putting regulations in place.
Exactly. The report highlights that trend. More governments setting pretty ambitious carbon reduction targets. And you see more and more requirements for ESG reporting.
ESG, environmental, social, governance.
That's the one. It's basically a framework to assess how a company is handling risks and opportunities linked to sustainability and, ethical impact. So keeping up with those rules is just becoming table stakes for staying competitive and compliant, of course.
Okay, so there are these big pressures, environmental, social, regulatory. But the McKinsey report also argues this isn't just about dodging problems, right? It's an opportunity.
That's a really key takeaway. It can unlock a genuine competitive advantage. Think about it. Businesses that really get this right often become more attractive. Customers who care about the environment or social issues, they notice.
So brand loyalty, maybe market share increases?
It'd be. And then there are the investors. Socially responsible investors are actively looking for companies with strong ESG performance. That can mean access to more funding, maybe even cheaper capital. It's about building a business that's more resilient, more, future-proof.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's shift to the practical side. What kind of strategies does the report suggest? What can business owners actually do?
Yeah, the report focuses on a few key areas. First, really embedding sustainable practices across the whole business. Often that means starting with a good hard look at your entire supply chain. Where are the carbon emissions coming from? How can you reduce them?
The whole chain, not just your own factory or office.
The whole chain. And interestingly, the report pointed out something kind of surprising for many businesses. A big chunk of their emissions might actually come from suppliers further down the line, maybe tier 3 suppliers they don't even directly contract with.
Wow, okay. So that needs a different approach.
It does. It means really engaging differently with your wider value chain. You need more data transparency, maybe collaborative efforts to cut emissions, and of course, investing in energy-efficient tech in your own operations, setting up solid waste reduction and recycling programs, that's still crucial.
Right. Looking outward, but also getting your own house in order. What about the inclusive part of inclusive growth?
That's the next big piece. Prioritizing diversity and inclusion, actively building a workforce with different backgrounds, different experiences, different skills.
And it's not just about numbers, is it? It's about the culture.
Exactly. It's not just ticking boxes. It's creating an environment where those diverse perspectives are actually valued, where they feed into how decisions get made. The report really stresses offering equal opportunities for everyone to grow, to move into leadership roles, and having clear policies for fair treatment, making sure everyone feels like they belong.
So who's on the team and how the team works together?
Okay.
Got it. The report also mentioned aligning business goals with social impact. How does that work in practice?
Yeah, this is about thinking beyond just your own operations. How can the business be a positive force in the wider community or the world? It could mean things like actively supporting local communities, maybe through job creation or investing in education or skills training.
Or partnerships?
So partnerships, yeah. Partnering with social enterprises, maybe nonprofits, to tackle specific problems together. But the key thing, just like any business goal, is setting clear, measurable social impact targets and then actually tracking your progress.
Right, making it concrete and holding yourself accountable. And the final piece you mentioned was transparency, reporting on all this. Why is that so important?
Well, transparency is really fundamental. It's how you build trust. When you regularly share what you're doing on sustainability, how you're performing against your goals, what your impact is, you show stakeholders you're serious.
Stakeholders meaning customers, investors.
Customers, investors, your own employees, the community, everyone. It shows a real commitment. And the report suggests aligning your reporting with recognized standards, like GRI or SAB.
Okay, what are those?
GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative, is quite broad, covers a wide range of sustainability impacts. SASB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, is a bit more focused on what's financially material for investors. Using these frameworks makes your reporting more credible, more effective.
So it's not just doing the work, but also communicating it clearly using established ways. Now, this isn't all just theory, is it? The McKinsey report gives actual examples.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It has several really good case studies. One that jumped out was a global manufacturer. They managed to cut their carbon emissions by 50%. 50.
Wow.
Through a mix of things, optimizing their logistics, their transport networks, and also investing in more energy-efficient tech in their factories. It really shows that big improvements are possible with focused changes to operations.
That's a great example of the sustainable practices part. Any examples on the inclusive growth side?
Definitely. For inclusivity, the report talks about a digital payment app in Peru. They managed to bring financial services to 5 million people who didn't have bank accounts before. 5 million.
That's huge.
Yeah, so it wasn't just good for the company's growth, it massively boosted financial inclusion in the country. It shows how your core business model can actually be inclusive and have a huge positive impact.
A perfect example of aligning business goals and social impact. Very cool. And did the report touch on just sort of general green innovation, new types of businesses emerging?
It did, yeah. It highlights this surge we're seeing across different sectors in green initiatives, everything from new renewable energy startups working on, cutting edge tech to established farming businesses figuring out more sustainable ways to grow food, reducing environmental impact but keeping yields up.
So it signals a real shift in the landscape.
I think so. Sustainability is becoming less of an add-on and more of a core driver of innovation, of creating value long term. It's happening across the board.
So looking ahead then, if you had to boil down the key message from the McKinsey report for business owners listening, what would it be?
I think the core message is pretty clear. Sustainable and inclusive growth. It's not just a nice to have, not a passing trend. It's becoming fundamental for lasting success. Businesses that get ahead of this, that really embrace these principles now, they're just going to be better positioned.
Better positioned to handle challenges.
Yeah, to navigate the challenges of, let's face it, a rapidly changing world, but also better positioned to build stronger businesses, build more trust with everyone they deal with, and ultimately create more value in the long run.
It really does feel like we're heading towards a place where, doing good and doing well financially are becoming much more linked. So just to recap quickly, we've dug into why this matters so much now, those environmental pressures, the changing social expectations, the regulations coming down the track, and we've unpacked some key strategies. Looking at your supply chain emissions, fostering real diversity and inclusion, tying your business goals to positive impact, and being transparent about it all.
And the real-world examples show it's actually possible, it's happening. So maybe as you, the listener, think about all this, it's worth considering the long-term picture for your own business. Where are the opportunities to kind of connect purpose and profit more deeply. Maybe just pick one area we talked about today. Could be energy use in your operations, could be your hiring practices. And just think, what's one small, concrete step you could take, maybe inspired by some of these ideas from the McKinsey report?
That's a great thought to leave people with. And if you do want to go deeper, the full 2024 Sustainable and Inclusive Growth Report by McKinsey is out there. Definitely worth a read. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.